Happy New Year, everyone. Gino Buccola here, along with David Aragona. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Daily Racing Form YouTube as we get set for a stakes preview at Gulfstream Park. But before we head on out there, we want to remind everybody about the New Year's Day sale going on right now, all the way through January the 6th. Shop.drf.com. Use that coupon code NY2025, and you can get 15% off all your favorite products in the DRF shop. So as we head over, we'll take a look at these newly turned 3-year-old fillies going 1 mile on the turf course. David, a couple of horses in here that will take some money. You have Nitrogen, who's still a maiden, but comes out of a third-place finish in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf and is actually multiple Grade 1 place now, still as a maiden. You also have a horse like Seveta, who comes out of winning the Wait a While, was second in the Matron last time out. Really sharp horse who's done very little wrong throughout her career. So imagine that those two will probably be two of the more supported horses in this pretty wide open group.
Yeah, I got the listed stakes race here with a pretty interesting field. And as you mentioned, Nitrogen coming out of that good effort in the Breeders' Cup. Have to imagine she'll be the favorite here, but is looking for that first career victory.
Couple horses on the second page of odds too to the outside with Winning Streep. You also have Good Long Cry. Always curious in big fields like this what the Timeform US pace projector may look like, so we can head on over and see what our friends at Timeform US think. And they've got Seveta right up front. A lot of times, David, in big fields like this, you have to think about intent and post position as well. With a horse like Good Long Cry, who's drawn way to the outside, they may have to get a little bit aggressive to keep from being hooked way out wide.
Yeah, I don't think Seveta is the one most likely to be on the lead. I know she's coming out of some sprint races. At least her first 3 starts were sprint, so I think that's influencing the pace projection here. But they did rate her when she stretched out to the 2 turns last time. I would imagine horses like the number 1 Smile Poe, if she starts here, Good Long Cry, the number 12 from the far outside post, they kind of have to be aggressive with her. And then it's going to be interesting to see where the number 10 Nitrogen is placed, because she did show plenty of early speed in the first couple starts for her career, but her kind of defining effort in the Breeders' Cup last time came as a closer. So she's a versatile one that I think will have some decisions to make.
It's funny with Nitrogen, you have 3 races on the page, and she's basically shown 3 different running styles in those 3 races. She's been on the lead, then mid-pack, and then like a stone cold closer. So versatility, but still hasn't been able to get to the winner's circle quite yet. Let's head on out and meet this field for the Ginger Brew. This is going to be the finale on Saturday, January the 4th at Gulfstream Park. The number 1 Smile Poe has to show more on the grass right now so far, David. We've seen those 3 races on the synthetic where she was just much better. She ran sort of the same race and speed figures on the turf. She was just facing a better group. And so she, instead of finishing first or second, ends up finishing 10th, beating 6 lengths in there. As you were pointing out, I'd expect them to try to get more aggressive with her because she just wasn't really close and just never really involved in that last race.
Yeah, she kind of lost the weight a while at the start. She was off a step slowly and then got kind of ranked behind that wall of horses heading into the clubhouse turn and just could never really get involved thereafter. She was a big price that day, so it's not like there were expectations coming into that race. She had just run some slower speed figures when she had been successful against horses on the all-weather surface prior to that. So she's got a lot to prove, and she is one of a few, I think, 3 horses in here that are cross-entered in an allowance race on Sunday.
I thought the 2 Love Severe was going to be pretty interesting in this spot. Maybe a horse that could offer some value. That debut win at Aqueduct on November the 1st, I thought was very, very good. Even on the gallop out, the horses seemed like they did not want to stop. So expecting this horse and projecting them to go a little bit longer, I thought was fine for her. So visually pretty impressive. What are some of your thoughts on the 2 in here, Love Severe?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. She got dismissed at 12-1 on debut because it's not like it's some secret that Christophe Clement often has his first-time starters ready to fire first time out. And she ran a very professional race. She was kind of in and amongst horses early, racing in traffic. Once Jose Gomez got her into the clear at the quarter pole, as you said, she really quickened nicely and opened up on that field, coming to the wire, really looking like a horse that wouldn't mind a little bit of extra ground. And she's bred to get at least a mile, being by Into Mischief. Her dam was a winner on turf going a mile. She's a half to a route winner. So I think there are definitely some things to like about Love Treveri.
the number 3 Fixin to Be, took a shot on the dirt last time out after 3 turf races to begin her career. If you go back to the turf form when she breaks her maiden, that was a pretty good effort. And her losses most recently have been to a couple nice horses. When she was on the dirt, she lost to a very nice horse named Good Cheer, who's 4 for 4 at the moment. So the overall form isn't bad. It kind of makes sense here. She's probably going to need to step up a little bit on the turf, though, and run a little bit faster on speed figures to probably compete with these.
Yeah, watching back her maiden victory on the grass two back, it was kind of a race where 4 horses were across the track in the final 16th coming to the wire, and she was just able to edge out the victory. She got a very good trip up until that point, saving ground, and it's not like she earned a speed figure that makes her really competitive in this spot, so she would need to do better, and this is now her 5th start of her career. I'm just not sure that I can project the upside for this one.
Yeah, she is coming out of races that are live. The races on the grass, she beat a couple next out winners, so maybe they're a little bit faster than they may look on speed figures, but I agree with you. I couldn't quite get there. As we move to Coretto, who was 3rd in the Miss Grillo, and she's one of a couple that actually took a shot in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. So it's really hard to hold that too much against her because she was facing a much tougher group, David, there than she will be facing here, at least a more proven group there. But this is still a pretty competitive, wide open field. What do you think about Coretto in here coming out of the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, I don't want to knock her too much because she really hasn't done much wrong. She was professional on debut at Kentucky Downs, earned a nice speed figure for that victory, and then she came right back and she ran a nice race to be 3rd in the Miss Grillo. I mean, she got a good trip in that spot, but still, I mean, was competitive with some nice horses. And I'm not going to say that she was disgraced in the Breeders' Cup. That was a pace that kind of fell apart a little bit towards the end. She was up close towards the inside. I think the nature of that Del Mar turf course on Breeders' Cup weekend was favoring closers. So I don't want to really knock her for fading a bit at the end of that race. And now she's coming in here getting some class relief. She drew pretty well. I'm not going to be surprised when she puts forth another good effort.
Hello? 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 That's our next one that we're talking. I feel like the Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Every time this horse runs. Hello, hello, hello. We'll come back to the turf and try to turf for the 3rd time. Both of her wins have been on the synthetic, but you can understand why they keep trying the turf. The Dam was a 4-time winner on the grass. A couple siblings were multiple winners on the turf. One of them a stakes winner, a grade 3 place. So there's some pedigree there for her to be good on the grass. She just kind of has to show it and put it together. She was defeated by Special Aviator last time out, beaten 5 lengths when finishing 8th. Do you see her transferring that form over? It's certainly in the pedigree for her to be a nice grass horse.
Yeah, it didn't really translate last time. She's a horse who is also cross-entered in that all-weather race on Sunday. That feels like it might be a more appropriate spot for her. She's just a horse who's going to have to do a little better on this surface because she's had 2 chances and just hasn't really shown enough.
Disco Star was over in New York when she broke her maiden on October the 26th. That was a really impressive effort. It was sprinting, going 6 furlongs on the turf, but she's also a half to a 5-time turf winner, a stakes winner, 4 other turf-winning sibs, so very nice pedigree there. She'll come running late. She just has to prove it. Going a little bit longer now. This was 6 furlongs, so she'll have to stretch out here. Visually, extremely impressive. I guess one knock I had on her wasn't the win, because this was a good-looking win, David. Looks like there's nothing posted in the work tab from about November 20th to December 11th, so maybe 2 missed works there. And in a competitive field like this, I'm just kind of looking at every little thing possible. But on paper, that certainly is a horse. If they were able to reproduce that effort, that would put them right on the wire in here.
Yeah, she was, as you saw at that replay we just took a look at, she was really just motoring away from that field in the late stages, and she didn't get off to a great start that day. She broke last in the 12-horse field, had to work out a trip, came wide on the turn, and did finish out in the center of the racetrack, but didn't seem to bother her whatsoever. She's also a horse that ran really well in her turf debut up at Saratoga. I mean, the issue is those are all sprint races, and when you look at her pedigree, as you said, there is good quality turf in there, but it is more sprint leaning. She's by that sire Disco Partner, who she's probably the best progeny of him, but he was a very accomplished turf sprinter. And I just wonder a little bit about the stretch out in distance with this one.
We have Special Aviator next. 2 for 2 so far. Was a stakes winner on October the 26th. That was on the turf. So winner on the synthetic, winner on the turf. Both of those races going long. And visually was pretty solid in that effort. And it was in between horses and then held off a big late rally from another rival. That was back in October, though. So it's been a couple months. We'll need to improve. We'll need to get faster. This is certainly a much tougher group than what she's faced in those first 2.
Yeah, she was game to get the victory last time. I liked the way that she kind of battled on through the final 16th when it looked like she might be in some deep water. But that's just a race that, from a quality standpoint, feels like it's a cut below this one. And we saw a few horses that participated against her that day come back in the wait a while that we'll talk about in just a little bit. And they were mostly off the board in that spot. So I just feel like this is too big of a step up in class.
The next one up is Seveta, who will be one of the major players in here. She's never really run a bad race in her 4 starts. She won the Wait a While Stakes most recently on November the 28th at Gulfstream Park, a grade 3 place, so now a stakes winner. She had a good start. She settled inside. She was just behind the leader. She waited, didn't have a whole lot of room to the outside, just kind of kept waiting, and then a nice hole opened up. And when it did, she was able to outfinish Winning Streep in here, who's a rival, one of the horses drawn to the outside. So pretty workmanlike performance. I feel like she's kind of a measuring stick horse for this field. You can't really knock what she's done, but she's going to have to keep getting faster to deal with, I think, a couple at least talented horses in this field.
Yeah, I question how far she's ultimately going to want to go. She's stretching out to the farthest distance she's tried now, going a mile with that victory we just watched coming at 7.5 furlongs. And as you noted, I mean, she couldn't have gotten a better trip that day. Irad was able to save ground on both turns. He kind of made that perfect move to switch out at the top of the stretch, kind of making some room for himself, but doing it in a legal fashion. And
Yep.
she was able to come on through in the late stages. And I did think that she showed some gameness to hold off Winning Streep in the final 16th of a mile. I just wonder how much more she has to offer than that, because I do think this is a slightly tougher spot.
Kind of feels like one of those horses that was precocious, maybe ready to rock and a little bit ahead of everybody else, and they kind of catch up to you as the months go on. Now she'll need to improve here. Forward Deployed is the next one up. Another horse in here who, you look at the overall body of work, it's not like the grass races or the form is bad. She's just going to have to get faster and get a little bit better in here, coming off that maiden breaking score. Talk to us a little bit about that effort from her. She won on December the 8th right here over this turf course.
Yeah, we'll take a look at the replay of that performance. I thought it was a decent effort. I mean, I think the surprise was that she went off at 12-1. You don't see typically Chad Brown maiden breakers at that kind of price, but she just kind of got lost in the betting here and got some pretty good trip. I mean, it's not like she was ever right on the rail. She was too wide most of the way and is able to come on to beat a horse in Tam I Am, who took a lot of money in here, who was just kind of coming back to the field. That one looks a little distance challenged, and Forward Deployed sort of inherited the lead at that point and was able to hold off the closers. I thought her debut going back to Monmouth this summer was pretty good. She was a little green that day, had some late trouble. I was hoping to see a bigger step forward second time out, and she got the job done last time, but it wasn't the fastest race in the world. So I just kind of wonder if she really stacks up against this field from a quality standpoint.
One who seems to stack up pretty well against this group is Nitrogen, who is multiple grade 1 place. She just hasn't won in her 3 starts. I mean, you go through them individually, though. Her career debut, she faced the boys. She's beaten only a neck in that race after sitting fourth a few lengths off. They come back and they try to get aggressive with her in her second start. They put her right on the lead. She gets a little lost at the top of the lane. She still runs really well. She's only beaten 3/4 of a length in there against grade 1 company. And she improves again in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf with totally different tactics that day, David. We hadn't seen her have to come from so far out of it. And she was maybe 7 lengths out of it early, 9th or 10th in a field of 14. And this was pretty impressive. I mean, with a different trip, she could have at least been second in here. She had a pretty tough trip as we see her coming on late.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to envision her being right there at the wire with Lake Victoria if she had found a path maybe half a furlong earlier, because I mean, that stretch of Del Mar is pretty short. And you could see even coming to the top of the stretch, Jose Ortiz was just sitting at the back of the pack with nowhere to go with a ton of horse underneath him. And he really only was able to fully set her down in the final 16th of a mile. And she was just rocketing by horses across the wire. I mean, I wouldn't say she had a bad trip, because she actually adapted really well to the closing tactics. She didn't look rank at all. She seemed to settle pretty well at the back of the pack. Just seems like a horse that they're figuring out race by race, but clearly there's a lot of natural ability here. And if she can work out a trip from post 10, not going to be surprised when she's able to earn her first victory in stakes company.
Yeah, the versatility is real key too, right? We saw her have to come from out of it, but can they get back to using some of that positional speed that she showed in her first couple? If so, that'll give them some options in here for Nitrogen, who will likely be one of the shorter prices in this field. Winning Streep was a good second. We saw her in the replay just a few moments ago when she was second in the wait a while behind Seveta. You look a few starts back, she lost to a horse named Laurelin, who came back to win the Tepin at Aqueduct and is 2 for 2. So looking at her recent form, she continues to improve. She's just going to be out wide, probably going to have a tough trip in here. She's going to have to work things out. Like, everything would have to go pretty well for her, I think, to get that same sort of finish like she got last time out against a tougher group.
Yeah, I love the name on this filly. She's a little quirky, and she's by Oscar Performance, and she put forth quite the performance in her debut race when she had that clearly won, and then just ducked into the inside rail and entered her race before the 16th pole. She's definitely a horse who lacks some focus at times, but it seems like she's been getting a little more professional race by race. Her best effort, obviously, was the most recent one in the wait a while. We took a look at the replay for Seveta, and she was the one that was taking that good shot at her in the late stages and did get turned away, but I thought put forth a game performance that day. Probably has to run a little bit better, and I worry about the draw for her, especially given the rider that's on her back, who doesn't always seem so concerned with trying to get over to the rail in these races. So I can easily envision her getting a wide trip at here, and I think it could be tough to overcome such a trip against a field of this quality.
We will round out this field with Good Long Cry. Don't forget to turn the page if you're looking at your past performances here. Good Long Cry was one of those horses, we call him a light bulb horse, who was kind of knocking on the door for a while, and then, wow, really put it all together. And when she put it all together, it was a powerful performance. She sat just off a runoff leader, and she earned an 81 Beyer speed figure in this race. And that's the best speed figure earned by any horse in the field. You go through her form, she'd always been a nice horse. She had just missed a couple times against other really good horses, and it seemed like they really figured it out here with this powerful performance.
Yeah, I do want to caution getting too excited about this race because it was the final weekend of turf racing at Aqueduct this year, and that turf course had taken a lot of action from the middle of September all the way up until they ran this race in November. So sometimes you start to see some quirky results or some strung out fields coming through the stretch when that turf course really gets overused. So maybe that had something to do with the lopsided victory that day. But as you said, she had run pretty well in some of her prior starts, and I do think we have to at least consider the possibility that some of these horses that are entered on Sunday end up not running here. And a lot of those are horses with speed, like Smile Poe, or even the also eligible entrant La Gioconda. And maybe we find a Good Long Cry in a scenario where there isn't that much front running gas in this race, and she ends up getting to the front from this outside post. That could make her tough.
I think that's the key, right? Can she get towards the front end without having to be used too much from the outside? That will really impact her chances of winning or losing this race. So there's your field for the Ginger Brew. Let's take a look at how we're going to end up with our selections in here. And David, I think we both landed on a horse that could offer us some value. Probably won't be one of the top couple betting choices in here. It was visually impressive in the debut. Talk a little bit more about how you set him up for this race.
Yeah, I just think Love Trevere was very professional on debut, really finished up like a horse that would appreciate some added ground. As I mentioned, she's got pedigree for it. Christophe Clement doesn't have the greatest stats doing this specific move, stretching horses out off maiden wins, but I think she's drawn really well, where I can't say that for all the contenders in this race, and just feels like a horse that has some real talent, and maybe she'll be able to show it against this tougher group.
We'll use the same two on top, 2 and 10, and then a couple others underneath. David's going to go to the outside with the speed of the 12. I'll throw in a horse like the 8, who's pretty logical, fits at the level, and then include another one who's run well, sprinting, and see if they can stretch that on out. So whoever you play, however you play them in the Ginger Brew, we wish you the best of luck this weekend at Gulfstream Park.